चाइनीज प्रेसिडेंट से मिलेंगे पीएम मोदी। चीन के राष्ट्रपति की स्वागत की तैयारियां जोरों पर। प्रेसिडेंट के दौरे से पहले चाइनीज काउंसुलेट जनरल की जी बिजनेस से खास बातचीत। कहा, सीमा विवाद को व्यापार से न जोड़ें। देखिए पूरी बातचीत बस थोड़ी देर में। कंपनियों का डीजल बिक्री पर घाटा खत्म। डीजल बिक्री पर आज से 35 पैसे प्रति लीटर का मुनाफा, लेकिन डी रेगुलेशन पर विधानसभा चुनाव के बाद होगा विचार। जी मीडिया के ऑपरेशन टैक्स लूट का बड़ा इम्पैक्ट। कॉर्पोरेट टैक्स लूट पर लगाम लगाने की उठी मांग। जी मीडिया ने रेवेन्यू फॉरगॉन में 5,72,000 करोड़ की लूट की खबर दिखाई। सुप्रीम कोर्ट में सीबीआई चीफ के वकील का बयान। जी मीडिया का अखबार पड़ा है पीछे। कांग्रेस नेता संदीप दीक्षित ने कहा, जी मीडिया ने अपना काम किया। और 10 से 15 रुपए प्रति बोरी महंगी हो सकती है सीमेंट। मानसून खत्म होने से मांग में सुधार का अनुमान। फिलहाल होलसेल मार्केट में प्रति बोरी 245 रुपए है सीमेंट के दाम।
Hello, I'm Pragyaa Gupta. Welcome to Z Business. The Chinese President Xi Jinping is going to visit India shortly. With just 6 months left in the year, PM Modi's calendar is chock-a-block with scheduled engagements with the top leaders across the globe. One of the key policy challenges before the Modi government is Indo-China relations. And to discuss the same with us, we have Dr. Liu Yufa, Chinese Consul General in Mumbai. Welcome, sir. Pleasure having you with Z Business. Ni hao, ma.
Ni hao. Madam Gupta, it's my privilege to speak through you to the audience of my Indian friends.
Right, sir. So my first question to you is, the relations with China have begun on a positive note, with the Chinese Premier being the first foreign leader to have called and spoken to Modi for 25 long minutes. And Foreign Minister Yang Wei also visited India and held discussions regarding trade and investment. How do you now see the relations developing between the two countries?
Well, it's an open secret. Mature relations are usually built on the sound political relations, which will be supported.
How do you now see the relations developing between the two countries?
Well, it's an open secret. Mature relations are usually built on the sound political relations, which will be supported by the practical cooperations in all the relevant areas. In this regard, the bilateral relations between our two countries have increasingly become so. Over the past few years, our leaders have been exchanging visits. They've been meeting frequently at the regional and international occasions. We have established the strategic dialogue mechanisms. In terms of trade, China has become the largest trading partner for India. And India is the largest trade partner for China in South Asia. So in terms of the bilateral investment, it's coming a little bit more over $5 billion US. You see, it's kind of surging bilateral relations.
How do you now see the relationship developing under the new government in India under Prime Minister Modi?
Well, usually a new start with the new start of government, with the election of the new leaders, the stages will be set for a new start of the bilateral relations. In this regard, as you rightly said earlier, the Chinese Premier, Mr. Li Keqiang, took his first maiden trip to Delhi. Right. And Chinese President Xi Jinping met with His Excellency Prime Minister Modi in Brazil a couple of weeks ago. they've had
of course,
already
the BRICS summit.
The cordial relations at the BRICS summit in Brazil. I mean, they have made the political relations. I think one of the things we have noticed is that they have agreed on many things in principle.
So last year, both sides signed a border cooperation defense agreement. When Mr. Singh, the ex-Prime Minister, visited Beijing. How do you see the impact of that agreement and the current situation along the boundary?
You're right, the pact was an important benchmark. I say this because with the border defense cooperation, it will definitely compartmentalize the issues. It will be easier for authorities from both sides to manage the issues and things that may pop out from the border. And definitely our leaders, especially Prime Minister Modi and the Chinese President, have agreed to expedite the negotiations on the border issue so that both countries can sign a deal which will be acceptable to both sides. So we can put this political legacy behind us.
Behind us. We have a legacy of mistrust, unfortunately. So do you think that if there were increased border and increased trade and commercial activities, these border-related issues would become insignificant?
I would not look at the issue that way. Border issue is never a small issue. Well, it will never be buried by anything else. But I think that there are some kind of correlations between the two issues. With increasing bilateral economic and trade cooperations, conditions will be better for both sides to have more confidence to each other. It will pave the way for the process of negotiation to be expedited. So eventually, the border issue has to be settled because it's being sown, to the bilateral relations. We have to work out solutions which would be agreeable to both sides.
Moving on to investments. So China is, as per the latest research reports, China is sitting on the foreign exchange reserves of around close to $4 trillion. Now, China is apparently looking for investment, and India has the size and hunger for growth and expansion. Do you see China and Indian dream meeting sometime soon now?
Well, in fact, the foreign currency reserve and the FDI are different matters. The foreign currency reserve is the debt that the Chinese government owed to the FDI owners, Chinese people and the citizens, and only part of it is disposable by the government. The FDI you are talking about is referring to the direct investment from the government-owned institutions and the private enterprises from China. But definitely Chinese capital is moving out. Let me give you one figure. China has been investing a total of $700 billion overseas. So China is increasingly becoming an investing nation. So India, as a friendly country to China, will have every reason to expect more inflow of Chinese capital.
Do you really feel now that we'll be able to overcome the legacy of mistrust that's been the part of Indo-Chinese relationship?
This is a good question. We have a saying, the problems and issues would not take one day to evolve. Likewise, it would take some time for the things to settle down, for things to be resolved. Having said this, our leaders and our two governments have agreed to push forward the bilateral mutually beneficial cooperation while compartmentalizing the issues and conflicts and the frictions, so to speak. So I think this is kind of a two-way traffic. When I say we compartmentalize some issues, we don't mean let them sit forever.
Right. So, but China as such has been a very cautious investor. Even if I were to talk about all-weather friendly countries like Kazakhstan, Iran, you have invested heavily only in the energy sector. So how would you view this?
The energy sector definitely is one of the key component factors for the Chinese capital to flow into. But at the moment, the Chinese capital, especially from the manufacturing sectors, have been also increasing. It's increasingly become more the major component part of the Chinese capital that is outflowing. So in these areas, I think I can categorize, first and foremost, manufacturing and processing. Right. Second is the kind of energy. And third is the infrastructure. These are the three major areas where the Chinese capital is outflowing.
Now, if there must be certain groups in even in China itself who would be having diverse views regarding India. Now, if we do not consider China as a monolithic power structure, how do you now see, with the advent of the new Modi government, times changing, the relationships moving ahead between the two countries?
We have a popular saying in international relations: countries are free to choose their friends, but they don't usually have the pleasure to choose their neighbors. After all, China and India are such large neighbors that neither side can afford not to deal with it seriously indefinitely. So in this regard, we definitely have been moving our bilateral relations, starting from 1962. In the year 2005, we managed to establish the strategic partner relationship between our two countries. Now I'm quite sure with the new government on your side, but new government and the Chinese side, and when Chinese President Mr. Xi Jinping is here in India, he's going to meet with His Excellency President Mukherjee, and he's going to hold talks with Prime Minister Modi. Definitely, the new political decisions will be made, the new roadmap will be drawn, so we have every reason to look forward that we are going to have a healthier and more mutually beneficial relations between our two countries.
This MSR has been an issue of much speculation and debate. During the recent visit of Vice President Mr. Hamid Ansari also, there was an attempt to make India to sign up the deal, but the Indian side has been requesting for some more details on this. If I were to ask you, why hasn't there been more details and the clarity on the same?
During the meeting between my president and President Mukherjee, and eventually in the official talk between my president and Prime Minister Modi, this issue is going to be discussed in detail. Okay. I am quite sure my president will explain in detail of China's policy towards the border issue and towards the issue of Tibet. These things will definitely, let me just assure you and my dear audience from the Indian side, this issue is a political issue, right, but it's going to be tackled positively, which will help to promote the mutual understanding.
Right, sir. So previously, Chinese leader would visit India and China, India and Pakistan in just one trip. Now, do you think the recent postponement of President's visit to Pakistan, though unusual, would help China to develop better relations with India as well as Pakistan?
Well, I think I have to come to this in two layers or in two tiers. First one, according to the international practice, state visits or high-level visits definitely needs the sound political environment of the host nations. Right. We understand what is happening in Pakistan. Right. So as a result, the Pakistani government, the Pakistani leaders agreed, with the Chinese counterparts, not to call off, but to postpone the visit. Right. In this regard, China, let me just say this, China conducts its state relations with each and every nation in South Asia on the 5 principles of peaceful coexistence. China has never, played one bilateral relations against the other. So I think, it's kind of a two-way traffic. And when the situation comes to normal, I think it's very likely that the two countries, I mean Pakistan and China, will continue to resume the state visits and high-level visits. So I think this is kind of coincidental. I think I would not link these two together.
Right, sir. Pleasure having you in Z Business, and thank you so much for sparing time to Z Media.